They say words are cheap, until you hear the right ones at the exact moment your soul is crumbling. And if you've ever felt like life kicked you while you were already down, you're not alone. Most people don't talk about it, but there are moments when giving up feels easier than trying again. When the weight of failure, loss, or simply existing becomes too heavy. This story, it starts right there, at rock bottom. No fairy dust. No instant miracle. Just a man who had nothing left, and 5 words from a stranger that reshaped everything. What if you've been looking for change in the wrong places? What if transformation doesn't begin when your situation improves, but when your perspective does? Sounds backwards, right? But stay with me. Because buried in this quiet story is a hidden truth. The broken places in your life might be the exact places where growth is trying to break through. And the people who show up when you least expect might be carrying the very seed of hope you need to plant again. This isn't just about one man's story, it's about all of us. About how resilience is born, how strength is chosen, and how positivity doesn't ignore the storm, it dances in the rain. So if you've ever needed a reason to try again, or a sign that your pain still has purpose, keep watching. Those 5 words. They're coming. And when you hear them, you might just see your own life differently too. He didn't cry anymore. There were no more tears left. Just the dry silence of a man who had lost even the will to scream. The field, cracked, barren, lifeless, seemed to mock his pain. Every seed he'd planted had become a reminder of failure. Hope, once steady like the rising sun, had now crumbled into dust. The soil that once whispered promises now only echoed disappointment. But life has a strange way of teaching us. Sometimes, hitting rock bottom isn't the end, it's a doorway. A quiet place where the soul finally pauses long enough to reflect, and hear. That's how he found himself at the village well, not searching for water, but for a reason not to give up. He saw her, an old woman, sitting calmly in the shade, speaking softly to a child. Something about her presence radiated inner peace, like she had faced many storms and learned how to smile through each one. He didn't plan to listen, but her words found him anyway. The wind doesn't break us, it teaches us how to bend, she said. Even broken pots still carry water. In those simple metaphors, he felt something shift. Wisdom wrapped in kindness, pain softened by purpose. Without realizing it, she was planting seeds, seeds of resilience, hope, and slow, steady healing. She wasn't loud, nor did she offer magic answers. But there was power in her stillness, in her persistent encouragement to choose life, even when it feels empty. She spoke of strength, not as muscle, but as the courage to plant again. To smile even when your world's cracked. To give, even when you feel hollow. He looked at himself through her words, not as a man broken, but as one in transformation. Maybe the cracks weren't flaws, but invitations for growth. Maybe this wasn't the end of his story. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this. Something was beginning to bloom, slowly, inside him. And he knew, he had to return home. When he returned to his land, nothing had changed, but he had. The soil was still dry. The sky still silent. But his hands moved differently now, as if guided by something deeper. He began to plant again. Not just seeds in the ground, but seeds of hope in his heart. With every gesture, he whispered kindness to the earth, choosing to believe that broken seasons don't last forever. And even when doubt tried to creep back in, he smiled, not because things were easy, but because he was choosing a new way to see them. Growth doesn't start in the field. It starts inside. He started waking up earlier, not out of obligation, but with a quiet eagerness. Each sunrise was a chance to persist. He'd hum songs from his childhood as he worked, not to ignore the pain, but to invite joy back into the rhythm of his life. There was a kind of wisdom in this daily planting, even when nothing seemed to sprout. Resilience isn't loud, it's silent, repetitive, and stubborn. Neighbors noticed the change, not in his field, but in his eyes. He wasn't chasing wealth, he was nurturing peace. And when a traveler passed by and asked why he still tried, he simply said, "Because I believe what you plant today will bloom when it's ready. Even if I don't see it." Slowly, small shoots began to break through the earth. Fragile, green, and almost unnoticeable, but alive. He knelt beside them, whispering encouragement like prayers. This wasn't just about farming anymore. This was about transformation. Healing. Life lessons carved into cracked hands and sunburned skin. He began to help others, offering what little he had, advice, a smile, an extra handful of seeds. He became living proof that change doesn't require perfect conditions, just the choice to try again. Even broken pots can carry enough water to nourish someone else. And sometimes, helping others is the very thing that waters your own soul. The seasons had changed, and so had he. But not because the rain finally came, or because life became easier. No, his transformation happened in the drought, in the stillness, in the brokenness. He had learned that positivity isn't about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about staring straight at the pain and choosing to smile anyway. Not because you're blind, but because you've seen the darkness, and still choose light. And that choice, however small, can lead to inner peace. That's what real strength looks like. Not the absence of struggle, but the courage to grow in the middle of it. He began to speak to others the way the old woman had spoken to him. Quietly, gently, with stories instead of speeches. He'd say things like, "You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect to plant again," or, "Sometimes the most beautiful flowers bloom from broken soil." And people listened, not because he had riches, but because he had wisdom. Because he had hope. He'd tell them how every act of kindness, no matter how small, is a seed. And sometimes, that seed takes root in someone else's heart long after you've forgotten you planted it. That's the kind of growth that really matters. Life is strange, it doesn't follow our plans, and rarely offers easy answers. But it always offers choice. The choice to give up, or to try one more time. The choice to see yourself as broken, or as someone being rebuilt. He chose to transform. And through that, he became a mirror for others. He showed them that healing is not linear, but it is possible. That even when you feel forgotten, there's a reason to go on. That encouragement can be found in unlikely places, a conversation, a smile, a memory. And as his story spread, so did a quiet kind of revolution. One that started with 5 simple words, and changed more than just his life. Now that you've heard this story, let me ask you something. Where are you planting your energy right now? Is it in fear, doubt, or the memories of what didn't work? Or could today be the moment you choose something different? Hope, kindness, growth. Because here's the truth no one tells you, healing isn't about fixing everything. It's about deciding that even with broken pots, you still have something to offer. And sometimes, your most painful chapter becomes someone else's survival guide. What's stopping you from planting again? You don't need perfect soil, perfect timing, or even perfect faith. You just need a reason, and maybe this story was that reason. Maybe you're not as alone as you think. Maybe your cracks are exactly what someone else needs to see, so they can believe in transformation too. Let your life speak louder than your wounds. Choose resilience. Choose light. Choose to try again, even if it's just a small step. If this touched you, if it stirred something in your chest, even just a little, then let it grow. Don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below. Tell me what part hit you the hardest. Share this video with someone who needs a bit of encouragement today. And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and full of life lessons, then hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications. Because the journey's just getting started. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.